baby.
You ever heard about Walt Whitman?
Who's he play for?
He sort of pitches for the Cosmic All-Stars.
Never heard of him.
Oh, good. Listen to this.
In his 1961 book, An Experiment in Criticism, philosopher C.S. Lewis explored the idea that there are not, as we commonly assume, good books and bad books, but instead, good readers and bad readers. Lewis says the difference between good and bad readers, he calls them literary and unliterary, is that a good reader will return to books over and over, gleaning new insights from them each time. Bad readers don't because they've read it before. Taking it a step further, he asserts that the traditional way we judge the literary merit of books is not useful. Instead, he offers that a quality book is one that someone, anyone, will reread. Now, when I read An Experiment in Criticism in the mid-90s, I was immediately taken. As a budding art theorist and philosopher myself, I bought hook, line, and sinker Lewis's argument. But his words didn't just connect with me, they seemed to convict me. You see, I consider myself a bad reader. I should clarify, when it comes to nonfiction, I can devour page after page after page. I love to build and critique conceptual models, so the more information I take in, the more I can build and critique. I return to nonfiction works over and over to make sure I have mined their veins for as much gold as they have to give. But when it comes to fiction, I'm terrible. In all honesty, I can barely think of a single piece of literature I've willingly read more than once. After I've experienced the story, I see little value in going back for a second helping. And so I've spent a good majority of my adulthood wondering if there's something wrong with me. But I'm starting to think there's not. One of my favorite hobbies is binge watching television shows. Last year, I spent 34 days between Thanksgiving and New Year's viewing all 157 episodes of the original Gilmore Girls television series and the new Netflix miniseries. And yes, I have strong opinions about the final 4 words. I'm on my 4th complete viewing of The West Wing. I've seen Battlestar Galactica, Lost, Sports Night, and Firefly 3 times apiece. This year, I'm planning on rewatching Being Erica, The Sopranos, and 6 Feet Under. In my opinion, we are living in the new golden age of television. Most people call it peak TV, but whatever you want to name it, the writing and story development being presented in serial video form is like no other I know. And it's because of this high quality content that I've started to feel less and less ashamed about my lack of fiction reading ability. I'm experiencing deep narratives at a level and rate I haven't since I was 10 years old, when I was speeding through the Chronicles of Narnia and the Little House series. But here's the thing, I still want to read. I still want books to be exciting. But for that to happen, books need to change. What I want to say is this, the act of reading as an adult is unbelievably boring. And it doesn't have to be. In the summer of 2014, a book designer named Adam Lewis Green created a Kickstarter campaign for a book project called Bibliotheca. Bibliotheca was to be a new edition of the Bible, not a new translation exactly, but a new production of this ancient text. Green's contention was that the Bible was frustrating to read, was in fact difficult to read, because the way it was printed was too cumbersome, too off-putting. Most Bibles, he noted, had paper that was too thin and text that was set into columns and had footnotes like a reference book. If this book truly was a book of literature, then what had become the default way of producing this material treated it like anything but. Green wanted to take the biblical text and handle it with care. He wanted to produce a reading experience that allowed someone to become lost in the story like you would with a good modern novel. After 2 years of work, Bibliotheca was everything he promised it would be. He created a new typeface, hand-selected cloth for the covers, and carefully chose the paper. The book even lays flat without fear of breaking a spine. When I got my copy, I confess I cried a little bit holding it. It was so beautiful. I almost didn't even want to read it. It was so beautiful. However, as I've spent time with it, I actually found myself wishing Green had gone further with the production of this new edition. more accurately, I wish he had gone backward. From the 12th through the mid-15th centuries, a common form of book production was known as illumination. Illuminated manuscripts were produced by hand-drawing intricate borders around text, making highly stylized initials, and adding illustrations to the pages. These manuscripts served to communicate the text's meaning to highly illiterate populations. But when the Gutenberg press arrived in 1440, whatever prominence illuminated manuscripts had started to fade. It's rare to find any these days outside of a library or a museum. Gutenberg's press shifted the focus of books away from the aspects of illumination and their illustration of the text's meaning to the words themselves and the way words function as symbols. Reading became less about experiencing the text and more about the ideas behind the text. Today, this remains the highest goal of reading, to be able to comprehend in your mind what the author is trying to convey. Now, we call it imagination, but it's really just about thinking in logical, rhetorical ways. It's acceptable for a new reader to read picture books, but the way we know they're a real reader is when they no longer need those helps. And I wonder if this is what has contributed to the decline in reading. Reading when I was a kid used to be fun and stimulating, but now it's not so much. Not for everyone, I know, but for a lot more of us than the librarians would like to admit. In my view, there is no real reason for books in 2017, especially works of fiction, to be almost exclusively concerned with text. I'd like to see books become exciting and visual again. I want to see us produce a modern version of illuminated manuscripts. And to do this, authors and book publishers would do well to take a cue from producers of video. Here's the thing, videos are exciting to watch. They are immediately stimulating, and I don't think we should be judgmental of that. It's almost as if we insist that every other kind of media needs to be visually interesting and exciting, except for books. It's like we have a sick pride that books don't lend themselves to easy exploration, that to really deeply understand a book, you have to work for it. Quite frankly, that's a recipe for extinction. When my 10-year-old recently read The Princess Bride, he was as taken by the illustrations in his copy as he was the story. After he watched the film, he and I had an enlivening discussion about the differences between the two, even as far as the way the illustrated book depicted characters differently than the movie. He was richer for having read an illuminated book. But adults aren't so lucky. We don't get treated with the same respect by book publishers, and that's maddening. We even title certain publications graphic novels because we seem ashamed of what they really are. They're literature. Now, perhaps I'm just being silly. Perhaps this is wishful thinking and my desire is not possible to accomplish. But I don't think it is. I truly believe we can attend more to the physical nature of books in such a way that makes them not only more inviting, but also creates enduring artifacts and beautiful heirlooms that future generations will want to treasure. I don't think books will ever reach the immersive heights of a film, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Now, one can make judgments about my level of maturity based on this yearning for a return to picture books. But if C.S. Lewis is right, we shouldn't think that making a book more exciting by adding illumination is evidence of a lack of sophistication or of dumbing things down for the reader. Any book, he says, that is reread by someone, anyone, is a quality book. We should be doing all we can to make reading a better experience. Because I, for one, want to make sure my kids read when they become adults. But to do so, we've got to make books fun again. Hey gang, thanks for taking time to watch this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you don't want to miss any of the video essays, I release one every single week. Make sure and click right over there to subscribe. If you didn't see last week's video, it's right down there. You can click down there and watch that. And as always, if you like this video and share this video with your friends, that would be greatly appreciated. In the coming weeks, I've got some ideas I want to explore, including why I'm angry that I'm a Ravenclaw instead of a Hufflepuff. So if you too are similarly frustrated with your Pottermore sorting, make sure and subscribe, and so you and I can get frustrated about that together. All right, I'll see you next week.